Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews coming at you guys with a brand new show, The Sinner, Season 1, Episode 2 review. So, yes, as you can tell, I am picking up another new show. So this one, and I'm really kind of mad about how this show premiered and stuff because I only found out about it premiering about 2 days after the episode 1 came out. I actually learned about this show about maybe a month ago that it was coming out, but then I didn't know the premiere date, and I was kind of wondering, I mean, to be honest, I don't really have an excuse. I mean, I could have looked it up. I just kind of forgot about it, and it was 2 days after episode 1. I was gonna make a review for it, right, to have the complete season on my channel, but I just didn't get around to it. I was too busy. So I'm here with episode 2. I'm gonna start it off here. Of course, I did watch episode 1, of course, and loved it. And now they follow it up with this episode. So, wasn't my favorite episode. I will be honest. Wasn't as good as episode 1 by any means. But you know, a lot of stuff happened there. Kind of incited the whole series. But yeah, so just some information about this. I have read it's a close-ended series, so it sounds like we're getting 8 episodes for this season, and then that's it. I think that's the whole show, I believe. But I have heard of close-ended series coming back for another season as well. I mean, you know, just look at 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. At the beginning, I don't think they planned just for season 1 and then it basically took up the whole book. There's many shows out there that were based off a book. They finished the book material, but then they keep going anyways because of the fan base. So and this one, that first episode got great reviews. The whole show is getting great reviews and great ratings. So yeah, so definitely I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a season 2 maybe. We'll see. But for now, it is close-ended, so sounds like these are the only 8 episodes that we're going to get. But a good thing about that is the finale means that we're going to resolve this, and we're going to find out basically the big question of why. So anyways, really like the series. Jessica Biel, of course, really highly involved with this one, executive producing, starring. I even think she directed a couple of the episodes. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read that on some website that was reviewing it, and then we also have Bill Pullman, who's basically the second guy, the second leading actor, and he plays the Harry Ambrose, of course, the detective. So yeah, so really great actors in this one, and I'm really happy to see a show like this. Really cool. So anyways, let's get right into the review, or the recap, I should say. So anyways, the very beginning here, it resumes in the courtroom where we just left off last episode. I like that they went right back to it, brought us back in that moment. They didn't skip over it, right? And so basically, Cora ends up pleading guilty to the charge of murder, but the judge basically says some stuff about if you do that you're gonna be sentenced to life in prison or something like that, and asking why her lawyer isn't helping her, because obviously not no normal person just pleads guilty to second degree murder, I think it was. So anyway, so the judge orders a 7:30 exam on Cora to see if she is mentally stable to stand trial. And I don't think those are the exact words that she said. I'm kind of just, summarizing. But yeah, to see if she's mentally, it was mentally fit, I think, to stand trial, not stable. But yeah, so anyways, and then, of course, we later learn, like, few seconds later, that the Harry Ambrose actually called the judge and suggested the exam. So obviously the judge probably wouldn't have done it if Harry didn't call and help out. So now he's got a little bit of time to figure out why, and he's really invested in this and really curious. So yeah, so kind of a help to Cora, but also not really what she wants. She just wants it to all be over, as she says multiple times. So then in this episode, I mean, we got a lot of the flashbacks of Cora's mother being kind of insane, and forcing her to pray for her sister that was really sick there. And I mean, people believe in in whatever, right, and have religious beliefs and stuff. But I mean, her mother was, pretty far on the spectrum, or her well, no, it was just her mother really, because her dad wasn't really like that though. So her mom was pretty far on the spectrum, and of course, that led to a lot of abuse and stuff for Cora. So I'm not going to really go over a lot of these flashbacks. I mean, it's just kind of the same thing, telling us how her childhood was. Maybe this actually leads us to end up finding out, what is wrong with her. Maybe it came from her childhood, probably, right? But anyways, yeah. So I'm not gonna cover too much on that, but just the chocolate bar comes back later that she got from her aunt, and it's a sin. And her mom blames her for her sister being sick and all that, and that's a lot of guilt to have for Cora. No kid really deserves that, and obviously it isn't really her fault, for eating one chocolate bar or whatever. The sister is very, very sick. But yeah, so just kind of showed her childhood and how rough it was, and like just how sad things were for her. And that the dad was also kind of conflicted there, because he didn't really agree with the mom either, so that created some conflict there as well. So yeah, that's basically all I'm gonna say about that. But then Harry meets with Frankie's girlfriend, or yeah, I don't think they were together. I think they were just girlfriend and boyfriend. I don't think they were married or anything. And obviously last episode he tried, but she was still in that coma, or they put her to sleep or something. So now she's came to, I guess. And so she tells Harry that Frankie had a relationship with a girl 5 to 6 years ago. Some accident happened or something like that. And yeah, so then of course that story ends up matching with what Cora said. So Harry gets very curious here. He, starting to think he has it. He has the story from Cora, and he's starting to figure out why. But of course, we find out later on he doesn't. So, anyways, I'll get to that. But yeah, so that was kind of an interesting scene. She's been with the girlfriend just to see how she's feeling after the whole ordeal. So then Mason goes to work. He's starting to get back into his routine. He his dad doesn't really, force him to come back. It's kind of his decision. And of course, we see him there in a house installing air conditioning or whatever. That's what the company is, Tenetti. And he overhears the woman talking in the other room about him, and saying that he's on the news and all that. So kind of realizes that a lot of attention's on him, and it's kind of frustrating for him. I mean, he's just trying to do his job, get back in his routine, and then he has a woman like that. So that's just how it is, I guess, in that small town. And then there's a lot of flashbacks in this episode. Personally, I wasn't a big fan of them, but later on, I think they're going to come back to be really important, and I'm probably going to like them more. But for now, not my favorite. So just kind of a flashback of Cora and Mason meeting there, and how she was a waiter at the restaurant he went to, and basically, that's how they met for the first time, and the relationship kind of went from there. So it's kind of cool to see how they met. Little like backstory there, and I think it was needed. It was needed for the rest of the show, but as of now, just not a big fan of those scenes. And it was kind of a cliche meeting too. I mean, it wasn't like they ran into each other randomly. Well, sorry, they did, but she's a waitress, and he just was in the restaurant. I've seen lots of that before in TV shows and movies. Wasn't anything, big, unique, or different. So, yeah. So then Harry is in counseling with his wife, Faye. And I find, as well, this episode kind of focused on Harry. Last one was sort of about Cora and the whole, obviously the murder. But this one was kind of focused on Harry, so we had a lot of scenes with him and his sort of backstory. But yeah, so he's in this counseling with his wife, Faye, and he's trying to get the relationship back together and stuff, and they're talking. And then he goes to see that blonde woman that we saw last episode that steps on his fingernails, and he has like all the bruised nails and the black black skin and whatever, right? The black tip of the nails. It was really gross. But he sees her and tells her he is done going to her. He doesn't want to be associated with her anymore, and he wants to make it work with his wife. And he, of course, later, he says, that he wants to live together with his wife again, he really wants to try to make it work. So I'm not sure what changed in him, from before that we started seeing the story to right, to now. Obviously, he's pretty, he's not too happy with his life, obviously, and how he's treated his wife, I guess. So now he's kind of, feeling like maybe a little guilt, and he wants to go back to the house and spend time with her. So that'll definitely we'll see how that goes in the future with him and his wife, and see how they make out. Yeah, just a bunch of Harry stuff. And I'm gonna go in chronological order for this one. I'm gonna take a little bit of stuff out of order, but mainly sticking on the straight and narrow. So Harry meets with Cora again after the first time where it was just dead end. And so this was a big scene. So Cora tells him the story of July 3rd, back in 2012, where Frankie was there at this bar, and she says, his nickname was JD. She didn't know that it was Frankie because he went by this fake name. And she tells him, Frankie and her had a one-night stand, and he got her pregnant. And then that's how she knew, him. For the whole murder to take place. So Harry's kind of piecing it together. He definitely buys it all, of course. And of course, she tells him the car accident story about how she wasn't pregnant anymore because of the accident, and she had a concussion, stuff like that. She checked into the hospital. So pretty brutal thing happened to her. Really unfortunate, of course. And of course Harry buys it and is emotionally invested in it. So Harry shows the video of that confession from Cora to the other guys that are working the case. I haven't got a name from either of them yet. But yeah, the one like boss sort of guy, he has the really white hair, kind of a little fat, a little overweight. He is sort of like the boss of Harry, I think, and then the other guy, of course, his partner. Not sure what his name is. But he basically shows that video to them, and they're all confident it's the truth, and they're starting to think they've won this case. So obviously, some difficulties are going to happen because we have 8 episodes, we have 6 more after this, and obviously there's no way they've solved it. So then we see Mason have a flashback of Cora and him having sex, and her suddenly having this reflex, and kind of putting him into a chokehold with her legs. And it does hurt him quite a lot. He can't, he's having trouble breathing afterwards, but he's able to get out. And she basically lost control. And, Mason says, "What was that?" And she says, "I don't know." So obviously we see that in the past she's had these sort of moments where she loses control and does, violent things. And I think that's just, trying to show us that Mason is sort of, recalling maybe events and maybe thinking about anything strange that has happened with Cora in the past to try and understand what is going on with her right now. So it's definitely a difficult time for Mason in this as well. I mean, he has been, with his wife for I think it was definitely a few years, and now all of a sudden she's murdered someone. So really tough time for him. So then basically Mason, he had a few things in this episode that were pretty interesting. I liked. He later on meets with the woman, the police officer that he meets earlier at the courtroom, and he's known her for a long time, that we find out. And of course she ends up telling him about the one-night stand that JD and Cora had, and then that he got her pregnant. And basically sends Mason into a revenge phase. He's surprised, he's never heard the story before from Cora. And obviously, he's going to want revenge for his wife. And he definitely wants to find JD. And later in the episode, as I'm going to touch on, he tries to meet up with them. So that's a different thing I wasn't expecting, that Mason was going to do that, but definitely gives him a purpose right now, to get revenge for Cora, and I really like it. I really like the writing for his character. Don't let him just fade in the background here. He's going to have a role, and he's going to have a purpose on this show. So then after that, Mason meets with the police officer there. We see Harry, look into this whole thing that Cora told him, make sure, it's the truth. So he meets with that bar owner that Cora recalls where she was. So she tells him the name of the bar on July 3rd. And she confirms, the bar owner confirms that Cora was there, but Frankie wasn't there. It was a different guy with blonde hair, not dark hair, which Frankie had. So Harry's, starting to doubt, and, he says, you sure? You sure it wasn't him? Or whatever. So maybe, he's thinking, okay, maybe the bar owner doesn't know, maybe she didn't get a good enough view of it or whatever, right? So he kind of has his doubts. So then, to make sure, he meets with Frankie's parents, which is a tough scene to watch. The mom upset about, the whole thing, and especially about, Harry coming into their house and blaming, the son for getting her pregnant, or maybe even just being at the bar, I'm not sure. But she, walks away, but then he has a moment with the father, and he says that he has, the service papers, that Frankie was gone, working somewhere for the summer in 2012, and he couldn't have been there at the bar, the same night Cora was there, because he was gone the whole summer, hours away. So definitely, this puts a whole wrench in the whole Cora story, and basically blows it out of the water. And then the finishing touch, he gets a phone call coming out of the parents' house there from his agent, the friend, and he says her parents are both still alive. He's looking into it too, so he did some research. Her parents are both still alive and well, and there are no hospital records of her the night that she was hit by the car, and that the baby apparently was killed. So, we find out that she lied about the whole thing, which to me it was kind of predictable. I kind of thought that she was lying about it. It was just, way too dramatic, in my opinion, to be real. But obviously, Harry's just trying to get to the bottom of it, and he probably, didn't think that she would lie to him, or, obviously he underestimated her. Which a lot of people have already in the show, just in 2 episodes, including her own husband. So, anyways, so she lied. We all find out, and big consequences coming. So then kind of just a interesting scene where the women in the prison there steal Cora's mattress. And the leader of that group that we saw praying earlier in the episode kind of tells her to join their group, so she won't be pushed around for being a loner. So that maybe might lead to some other things, in prison, and kind of, foreshadow what her life is going to be like in there, if she, is still alone and she doesn't join a group or something like that. So then Harry goes to meet with Cora. He confronts her about the lies that she told him, and obviously, he voices his anger to her, saying, you lied to me, and he's not happy about it. But he figures out during this episode that this certain music might actually be what triggers Cora. Of course, he doesn't know the extent of it, but he's just going to play it to try it out. So he goes, Cora's not telling him anything, and so he starts to play this music. And basically, he keeps playing it. She says, turn it off or whatever, because she knows what's going to happen. Or she doesn't, but she, it annoys her, and obviously, puts her into some mode where she can't control what she does. So obviously she doesn't like it, but he just puts it louder and louder, and it ends up triggering her. And we see that pattern from the wall back in her room from the first episode, and that's really interesting. Every time she snaps and does something, we see that little pattern on the wall. So really interesting. So at this point, we all know that something's going to happen here, something's going to go down, and basically she tackles him down to the ground, hits him numerous times, just wailing on him, right? And then 2 guards come in, take her off, and then Harry, he's, I'm all right, or whatever, but he is definitely kind of scared about just all of a sudden this rage from Cora that, just unleashed on him, and it was all because of this song. So definitely interesting, and now we know that this song is what triggers her, and it might not be the only thing that triggers her, but something is up here. So then later on, after that, Cora meets with Mason, and Mason knows JD, and of course, the police officer told him the story, and so he, more and more wants to get revenge against him for getting her pregnant because, as I said, he's kind of in a standby mode right now. He's kind of, frowned upon right now for being the husband, and he doesn't really know what to do. So, getting revenge is his first priority, I guess. So then we see him meet with an old friend there who knows JD still, and he wants him to set up a meeting with JD so that Mason can at least speak his mind or do whatever. I'm not sure because Mason isn't that big of a guy. I mean, he's not too tall. He's not too jacked or anything like that. Maybe he's a pretty muscular guy. I don't know, but he doesn't look like a big guy to me. Or a tough guy, I should say. So, and I'm thinking this JD guy, if he's friends with the guy who he met, I think it might be some trouble for Mason, but we'll see. So I don't know how that meeting is going to go. I have a feeling that Mason's probably going to get a beating, and it's not going to turn out well. But valiant effort for at least trying and being a hero in this and trying to get revenge. So kudos to him either way that it goes. Harry gets home to his wife, Faye, then that night, and a bird hits the outside window, the glass window, and he brings it back to life in his hand. He says, come back, and it comes back to life. So it was a weird moment, kind of tells us that maybe Harry isn't all what he seems. Maybe he has some secrets, just like Cora. So we'll have to see what that turns into. It may just be, that he likes, nature and that the bird ended up coming back to life itself, or he brought it back to life. We'll have to see. I feel like that's obviously going to be answered in the next couple episodes, maybe even the finale by then. I don't know. But I feel like it's definitely going to be answered, but an interesting question nonetheless. And so then later he takes off his shirt and sees the bruises from Cora in his mirror there. And he's starting to piece it all together here when he sees them. So then he calls his friend over in the middle of the night to the office, and here is the big scene. Now, just even talking about this, it's kind of giving me those chills in this moment. This was one of the best moments in a show that I've seen in the past. In a past, like, I don't know, maybe like in probably like all the shows I watched in the last couple of months. This is the biggest moment so far. I mean, I just love this moment, how he notices that the exact same pattern in the marks with stab wounds on Frankie. So the exact location of all these, these bruises are the exact location of wounds on Frankie Belmont. Really interesting. And so, of course, his friend said, well, it could be a coincidence, right? Whatever. But then he also shows him the time she hit him matches with the amount of time she stabbed Frankie. And he plays that video of her hitting him 7 times, the exact number of times she stabbed Frankie, the exact location, exact number of times. And so he says, she's doing the exact same thing that she did on the beach, and she has no idea. So, really, really cool moment. Honestly, that was the best part of this episode. Definitely up the rating because the rest of it I wasn't a huge fan of. But that right there just, really, really pieced it together. Really, I didn't expect that at all. I didn't see that coming. And it was just great how it all connected back. I really like that when shows do that and they're able to do it so effortlessly like this show. So that was a great moment. And then basically the episode ends with Cora sitting down on the middle of her bunk with no mattress there. Definitely would be uncomfortable. And so I kind of touched on this before, but it maybe, brings up the question of how her time in prison is going to be. Maybe going to encourage her to plead not guilty so that she can get out of prison sooner because, conditions are going to worsen probably for her and, things are just going to get tougher from where she is. So anyways, and then, so then the show kind of goes to black then. So really interesting ending to this one. Really, like I said, brought up this episode. The rest of it wasn't my favorite. The flashbacks didn't really do much for me. But like I said, I think they're going to come back soon in the future episodes. So really excited for next week's episode, and I'm loving the show so far. Did not disappoint at all. So now we'll get to my rating for this one. So my rating for this episode of The Sinner, I gave this one a 3.7 out of 5. Now I felt like this was maybe even a little high, but I took into consideration this amazing ending, and really upped the rating. I couldn't keep it low. Originally, I had low 3s for this one. It just wasn't my favorite episode. I mean, a lot of the stuff happened, wasn't really that interesting, wasn't that much action. A lot of the flashbacks weren't really entertaining for me, but I agree that they have to be there, not arguing with that. And it really tells us some more backstory, so that's a good part. But just didn't really do it for me all. But yeah, 3.7 out of 5 for this one. The ending, it was amazing. And, that's really what the shows are going to do, right? At the end of the episode, they're going to have a really big scene, really good cliffhanger, get you to watch next week. And that's what TV shows do, and that's their goal. So they did that with this one. That's why, I'm going to keep tuning in next week and the rest of the season to see the show. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say there. The ending, love that. I love the episode focusing on Harry, too. We got to see more of him, and I'm definitely excited to see more of him and maybe more of his backstory with the bird in future episodes. So that'll be really interesting. They're kind of showing us a semi main character, so they're kind of having two plot lines with this one, like Cora, and then we're also seeing Harry's background. So interesting. I really like it. I really like having a side-to-side thing. And of course, like I've said, my favorite character for this one is Harry Ambrose, and he's played by Bill Pullman. I did mention that in the beginning. He's great. I mean, he's been in so many things in the past, and him doing the show, agreeing to it was a big deal. And yeah, he's doing great in the role. So he's really playing it well. I mean, this is like a movie performance, really, from Bill Pullman. This type of acting, you usually see in movies, not TV shows. But yeah, it's really good. He's really doing it well, and the writers are writing some great lines for Harry. And just the way he's able to figure this all out, how smart he is, how quick thinking he is, and the whole thing with the music, figuring that out. So just really interesting, and he's definitely my favorite character for this one. For episode 1, definitely it was Cora. Just the way that she was portrayed there in episode 1. But yeah, so we'll see what comes for episode 3, who I like there. I would think, because episode 1 was Cora, episode 2 is Harry, I think they're gonna maybe follow a pattern here with every other is gonna be focused on them. I'm not sure. I would like to see that. If that's what they do, I'd be totally fine with that. If they don't, I'd be fine with that too. Or maybe even have an episode here and there do both of them. I'm not sure what we'll see. But anyway, 6 more weeks of this show. And then for now, I guess that's the ending of it. But we'll have to see if it's picked up for another season or not. But yeah, we'll just have to see what the support is on it. But anyways, until next time, thank you guys for watching the review. As always, I will see you next week for The Sinner, Season 1, Episode 3.